And welcome into In Depth with Fox Carolina Sports. Hey there, I'm Aaron Cheslock. And as we are each week, we're greeted by local coaches and athletes, and we walk their path to find out how they've got to the spot that they're in. And quite a story we have with our guest this week, the head coach of the Furman Paladins, Clay Hendrix. Coach, first of all, thanks for taking some time with us. I know you got fall camp starting up here in a little bit, but so much I want to talk to you about. First thing is the spring season that just wrapped up a few months ago, now in the rearview mirror. Obviously, there are a lot of different opinions when it comes to what went into it, how it all played out. Now that it's in hindsight, how would you classify it? I have to imagine, even in all your years on the gridiron, one of the strangest things you've ever encountered.
Well, I mean, that's a good way to put it. It certainly was strange. You know, we normally had done spring practice early anyways, and somebody asked me, and when we first started, it felt like spring practice. I think we reported on January the 6th. And I think in the back of your mind, you still were hoping you would get to play. You didn't quite know. We started the fall that way, and it got shut down. But, once we got to playing, it felt a little bit more like normal. I mean, we were practicing. It's funny even dealing with the darkness. It was dark, until March, and practiced most of the time in the stadium because of the lights. So it was different. I can't say enough about our kids and how they handled it throughout. How we handled the COVID, I think, was pretty remarkable. I think we had one positive test from November till mid-April, and it was the last week of the season. It was showed really no symptoms, but our kids managed it well. Obviously, in our business, you judge on how you play, and we didn't play as well as I'd like to play. Didn't coach it nearly as well, but I think anytime you learn from it and you move on, and I think we were really close every single week, and just didn't make enough plays to quite get over the hump, and thought we'd have a really good football team. I still thought we had a pretty good football team that didn't play as well as we were capable of playing, and I'm really excited about the group we got coming back.
Well, we'll get to that in 1 minute. But, I am curious as you get set for fall camp here. You've run a lot of these in your time. How does it differentiate the fact that the bulk of your team just played 2 football seasons in 1 calendar year? Do you change the way you do things to maybe give them a little bit of a break, either physically or mentally, to make sure that not only can you guys survive roster wise throughout this entire fall season, but that they can mentally handle all that's been thrown at them? It's a weird time to be alive for everybody, but these kids have gone through an awful lot for college athletes.
They have. I actually think the way our schedule, even our academic calendar here at Furman, is set up actually pretty well for us. We finished the season in mid-April. We had a couple of weeks probably with school finals. Most of our players would have been gone in May anyways. We have a May semester here. We don't have many kids around. They would have reported in June, and we would have been here for a session of summer school, which is actually ending tomorrow. They'll get another little break, which is pretty normal, which I think will be good for them, good for everybody. I really think the only difference was we were playing football games. And, if we had been playing football games in April and March and a little bit in February, we would have been training like crazy, And somebody asked me once, I said, well, what would you rather be doing? Would you rather be playing games, or would you rather be doing our off-season training? That's an easy choice. I think the concerns were really if you had an injury that maybe would carry over into the fall. We didn't have one. We lost 5 or 6 kids, some key guys during the spring season for that season, but every one of them's back. They're all back. Really, maybe one guy's not quite full go yet, but I don't see any reason we won't have them all back. So I don't know. I think it's a little bit how you view it. And if you view it as we can do this, I try to take the positive side of it, but I haven't had to twist that. Our kids came back ready to go. They've trained really hard this summer, and again, excited to get rolling in August.
And we'll go through a little bit of year by year since you've been back at Furman. 3-4 in the spring, that's well below your expectations. It's well below what your track record says they should be. So I know that sticks in your craw a little bit, but the way that the season ended, you mentioned that you didn't have a ton of injuries. Your rival Wofford certainly did. In fact, they had to cancel the rivalry game in the spring season because they simply didn't have enough guys to play on the offensive and defensive lines. That's, kind of the most COVID era problem you can possibly have. What was your message to your team when that game was canceled? I can't even imagine if you had outgoing players where that was supposed to be their final game, how heartbroken they must have been. Just how did you handle that entire finish to the spring season as you try to mentally prepare your guys to get ready to go again this fall?
Well, if you knew this, I won't say I anticipated some things that might happen. We actually did our senior day in the middle of the season because I had in my mind that may not happen. I mean, I followed what was going on. I know they'd had a previous game canceled, and so I knew that was a possibility. And then when we got wind of it, I think we were getting ready to play which ended up being our last game. As soon as I found out, we were in position meetings that day. I addressed it with each position group. And really at that point in time, there was still thought, do you try to find another game? And I just didn't feel like that was in our best interest, going forward. And I think probably had some disappointed seniors. We had some kids that had stuck around a year, really not even know if they're going to get to play. And I hated it for them. But all in all, our kids managed it well. It's so much, it's just life in general. I think that's what our game teaches you so much, is just handling adversity and things that happen to you. And, that won't be the worst thing that ever happens to any of us, but it wasn't fun. When you train, you spend so much time and really all those kids, that was their last college football game. And, so they lost that when we tried to focus on the game we were playing. And that was really our focus.
I don't think I've talked to you since the new name, image, and likeness policies came out across the NCAA. It seemed like kind of something that was inevitable. And then as soon as the NCAA put out their policies were going in place for all 50 states getting going with this season, what are your thoughts on the policy that's put in place, how it seems, in my opinion at least, that it was maybe rushed a little bit after federal legislation didn't get done? And how does it impact Furman and your program in particular? And I guess how do you see it playing a role in how you guys recruit moving forward?
Well, there's a lot in that there. I do think it was rushed through. I do think probably it was inevitable. I remember sitting at the coaches convention a couple of years ago, and we had an FCS head coaches meeting, and that time Todd Berry, the director of the FCA, came in, and I think they felt like that was something they couldn't fight. They were actually, at one time there was talk of giving up in college football, we've had the 3-year rule where you had to be there 3 years before you go to the NFL. And that was an AFCA rule. And obviously the NFL loved it because they had a built-in minor league program that didn't cost them anything. My understanding that was going to be a trade-off. And the next thing I knew, we said, here it was coming. I don't know. I can't say I'm just so against it. I think the problem is just every day you read something else about how somebody's going to spend the rule. I read something about Miami yesterday. Some guys pouring all this money into it so that every kid on their roster gets something. And there's certainly some benefits to that. But boy, the repercussions, you don't really know, what's going to come of it. And for me, the whole thing goes back and, it's college football. It's about the education aspect of it. Kids are, they passed the cost of attendance legislation, which was a good thing. I think there's even some problems with it, as far as things being fair, a little bit of fairness. You can have two schools in the same state paying the kids vastly different numbers. So I don't know. I think you combine that with the transfer rule, which probably I had more problem with than anything. And they basically created unrestricted free agency. I mean, that's from an NFL executive's mouth. They've created unrestricted free agency. We had a policy in place. We had a waiver process that I thought was fairly liberal. Actually, I was surprised some kids were getting waivers to transfer and not sit out that I didn't think they should have. But then just to go completely a 180 and completely open it up, and then I look at some of the people who are on those committees. I don't think many of them have sat in my shoes before and recruited and coached, but they're making a lot of these policies, that affect all of us. I really don't think, and I've said this from the first time I heard it, it did affect us. We lost a kid in December that I thought had a huge effect on how our season played out, and with no chance to replace him. But I do think I'm really proud of the place I work. I think our kids are here sometimes for a little bit different reason. They're here for the combination of the quality of education, the chance to play championship football, and in our case, just the chance to be around great people. And I think that's why our guys are here. And that's not to say we won't lose somebody, throughout that process. I really don't know the NIL, how it's going to affect us. I think we got some guys that I would love to have representing my brand or my company. And so I don't know. We'll see how that all plays out. I just think, again, there's so many things out there that people are dealing with, how it affects your locker room. I can only imagine, down the road at Clemson, South Carolina, some of the things. I guarantee you they've had discussions you've never even thought about yet of just how they think it's going to affect them.
Well, we'll go through your career here in just a moment, but you've coached at the Power 5 level. You certainly were a standout player at the FCS level. Now you're back coaching at the FCS level. Do you think this creates a bigger discrepancy between Power 5 schools going at each other, the Clemsons, the Alabamas, the Ohio States, the Georgias? Where's the best marketing deal? Does that factor into it more, or is it create even more of a rift between the Power 5 level and the FCS level?
Well, I think you're going to see some of both, because to say that's not going to play out between those Power 5 elites, I'm sure it is. I'm a little bit of a traditionalist. I don't think it's good for college football. There's talk about sometimes FCS losing the FBS games. I think those games are great for college football. People talk about scheduling and this and that, but I think it's something, for us, it's great for our kids. Certainly the financial part of it is great for us as well. I say great. It's just a fact of life. You need it to survive. And I don't know. I just think I think you can always make things better. Going forward. And there have been a lot of good things that have come down, decisions that have been made. But again, the thing that increases the gap has always been the money. I know I got asked the first year, 2017. It's funny, we're going back to NC State. Well, in 2017, we were going to NC State, and a guy called me from up there, and he said, the two previous times we played NC State, we'd beaten them. I was playing. I was a junior and a senior, and he said, well, what's different now? And I said, well, that was 1984 and 1985, and I think in those days, I looked the numbers up. I think in those days, the ACC payout was $500,000, a little bit more, and the SoCon payout was $0. And you fast forward 30 years, and I know the ACC payout's well over $30 million, and the Southern Conference payout is still $0. And so that's what's changed, and that's really what's changed everywhere. But also, what makes our game great is, you put 11 guys out there, and you hear it happens all the time. It's a great team sport, and the team with the best players doesn't always win. It certainly helps, but I think that the money is really what has created the gap. I do think there are a lot of people still that appreciate, particularly type kids we have here. We have some really good players, but you're talking about well-rounded kids and that you're going to go do great things in life, and we're excited about that. Yeah, we're competitive as the next guy, and we're excited to line up and play every week, and we'll look forward to those opportunities that we'll get a chance to play against those teams.
And, a lot of that toughness is from the their head coach's mindset. And Coach, your story is pretty incredible. You go through it here just a bit. You're Georgia native. You played at Furman starting in 1982, offensive guard under the legend Dick Sheridan, part of 3 SoCon championship teams, runner-up for the national title your senior year. What is your favorite memory from your playing days with the Paladins?
Wow, favorite. It's funny you just mentioned that game. Somebody asked me about that last game. We lose, we kind of led the whole game. We lose 44-42. In Tacoma, we go to Tacoma, Washington to play Georgia Southern. Sometimes say it's the greatest game that very few people saw. I think sometimes you remember those games. I don't know. I think as a player, particularly even here, the championships you won, I remember beating Appalachian to win a conference championship one year. And, the 4 years I was here, we went to Columbia, beat South Carolina. We went to Atlanta, beat Georgia Tech. We beat NC State, back-to-back years. As a player, those games, certainly you have to kind of remember those. And I think, though, the greatest memories are still the people I played with and guys I went to school here with. And, still great friends today. And I think those are the greatest memories. The games kind of fade away. And again, unfortunately, you kind of remember that one you lost, probably more than the other ones. And but I think probably just the people I've had a chance to be around. Coach Sheridan, I think I would be proud to say if you see him in a lot of things that we do, because I know we still try to do a lot of things that way.
Well, he must have had quite the impact on you. As soon as you graduate, you go into coaching and you immediately join Coach Sheridan's staff at NC State. Did you always know you wanted to coach? I mean, at some point, even though you had a really good career as a player, you probably knew professional football wasn't, a long-term plan. Was coaching always in your blood, or was it just a way to kind of stay around the game and get a paycheck?
Well, I think sometime in high school, it hit me that I wanted to coach. And, when I look back, other than my parents, the people by far that have had the greatest effect on me in my lifetime have been coaches. And it's the guys I played for in high school, the people here. Had made that decision. Actually had planned to stay here and be a graduate assistant. Coach Sheridan had told me I could have that spot. And then obviously he took the job at NC State and they offered me the same position there. And, Robbie Caldwell, so people that know around this area, the Clemson offensive line coach, he was my position coach. And I had a chance to work under him for 2 years as a graduate assistant. And then, so I think that's what I wanted to do. I'd gone the teacher education certification route. I had fully planned to coach and teach in high school if that's what it came down to. And I got an offer to come back here. I was 24 years old. And my first year I was coaching guys that I had played with. They were freshmen when I was a senior. And, we won the national championship first year, and boy, I thought I had it all figured out. But and I've been at 2 remarkable places, which is really unusual in my profession. I spent 19 years here as an assistant. We had a lot of success, played 3 national championship games, won 1, and then spent 10 years at the Air Force Academy, which was an incredible experience, which I know prepared me really well for an opportunity to come back here. And, we're excited with the things we're doing here. And have had a chance to win a conference championship, really first 3 years playing for it the last week. And our goal, I don't really hide from it. I mean, our goal is to win another national championship. And people think you can't do it at a place like ours where you have to have a bunch of smart kids, but we just don't believe that. And, and that's how we're doing it. And that's our, we have a plan in place, and we're working towards that every day.
Well, you brushed over the last that 15-year span there pretty quickly. I want to get into that just a little bit more. You return in '88 to coach the offensive line at Furman. You guys go on to win the national championship, one of the greatest teams ever at Furman. But your stint at Air Force, 10 seasons, many of which for a run-heavy offense as their offensive coordinator, 9 bowl appearances, 4 commander-in-chief trophies, a ton of success there. The way that offense ran, nationally known, run heavy, just and beat you in so many different ways. Is that really where you honed your craft as kind of an offensive mind?
Well, I think one of the things that helped me when I got there, I worked for a guy by the name of Troy Calhoun, and it's funny, Troy's still there. I think Troy's maybe one of the most underrated coaches in all of college football. The success he's had, had some experience in the NFL. He was an academy grad. He was with Jim Grobe when they first had all that success at Wake Forest, and he did some really neat things. I think he and I did a lot of the same things, had a lot of the same thoughts. I'd always had option in my background. I played for a wishbone guy in high school. So option has always been a little bit a part of what we did. And then certainly you go there and it's, that's the epitome of option is to go to an academy. And even there, we were a little bit different. We felt like at the time, when in the Mountain West in those days, when I first got there, we still had TCU, Utah, and BYU in the Mountain West. We were playing them every year. And, all three of those head coaches were defensive guys. So you always knew they were going to have a good plan for you. Boise State came into the league. And so it was really challenging there. I think largely just the fact that we had to play the same people at the time. The other two academies were independent. Their schedule changed all the time. So people never got used to playing them. I used to say I'd see Clemson. You watch them, the more and more they played Georgia Tech and the Paul Johnson, they got better and better at defending it just because those kids had seen it. So, I still spend most of my time on offense. That's where I feel like I have the best chance to help our team. I'm a little bit unusual. I coached the offensive line for 30 years, and I enjoyed that, still do. But I learned an awful lot there. It was a similar kid or the same kid that I'd coached here in a little bit different, certainly environment. And, I think sometimes, at the academies, you really do that because you have to. Because it is a great equalizer in a lot of ways. And you still see us dabble a little bit in it. But I do think that had a great effect on me in lots of ways. And I think I learned from Troy, I think that greatly prepared me for an opportunity to be a head coach, and you make decisions some of the best advice I got was do it the way you want to do it. And whether it works out or doesn't, you don't have anybody to blame but yourself. And so I've kind of tried to take that approach. But I did learn Troy was phenomenal guy to work for, how he treated people. And I tell you what, I think the best thing I have I look back in my career, and I have been so fortunate to be around a lot of just great, great men. I've never worked for a bad guy. I never played for one. And I got friends that, work for places or work at places, it's a little more challenging to work there for the environment. And I don't know. I just don't believe in doing it that way. There's lots of ways to do it. But I think I tried to learn something from everybody, throughout my career as Coach Sheridan, Jimmy Satterfield, who, gave me my first job here, who I thought had a great offensive mind. And, and I've always been around pretty bright kids, so you felt like you had a chance to do a number of things. And probably sometimes you try to do too much because they are a little brighter than some others.
It's interesting you talk about defensive coordinators game planning for the option. I can remember Brent Venables, the Tigers defensive coordinator, who, widely regarded as one of, if not the top DC in the entire country. He eventually just at fall camp just started putting in a Georgia Tech phase, regardless of when they were playing them on the schedule, just because it's so unconventional from what the college game has really turned into, the spread, aerial assault type of game. It's a quarterback wide receiver league right now, and the running back's kind of the cherry on top at this point. So you end up taking the head coaching job back at your alma mater, and boy, the success followed very quickly. 2017, you dropped the first 3 games of the season in really, if I remember correctly, I know this happened back-to-back years, but I think the 2017 year was when everyone was kind of a gut wrencher. But then you guys go on a run, 7 straight wins, go on to the playoffs, win a game. 2018, as I mentioned, you dropped the first 3 again, win 6 of the final 7, including the rivalry game over Wofford. 8-5-19, a playoff bid, a SoCon championship in there, as you mentioned, competing for a SoCon championship in pretty much every single year, which led us into the spring season that we already touched on. But have you felt this trajectory of how, and I'll speak on it since I've been covering the team. The program seems revitalized under you, and it seems like a steady climb to get to that goal that you've been talking about, is winning a national championship. No stranger to the playoffs anymore. do you still feel like everything's on the right track after the last 12 months of about as turbulent of a game planning or everything that goes into coaching? All you guys like to know exactly what's coming, have a game plan for every kind of situation. The COVID era and the spring season kind of threw a lot of different things at you. Do you still feel like that trajectory is on the right way?
Yeah, I really do. I think, I think you can break it down to a few simple things. It starts with recruiting. I think we've recruited exceptionally well. Our pool's a little different than other people's. You can't put a whole lot into rankings, but I know the two classes 2 years ago, we had maybe the number 2 ranked recruit class in the country. And I don't think sometimes people understand how hard that is to do at a place like ours, where, just from a test score, transcript, GPA, those type things that our kids have, to really be successful here. And then, I think we've had a terrific staff. At the age of FCS football, there's going to be some time to time you're going to have to replace some guys. And I'm okay with that. If I can help young guys move on, I think that's one of my roles as a head coach, is to help these guys, progress. But we've been able to replace them with really good people. And then, I thought clearly, and I still feel this way, I thought we had our most talented group coming in, had an experienced group. We got thrown a couple of curveballs and probably didn't respond as well as we should have. And obviously I know I didn't do as good a job as I should have going into the season. But, I told our team, we've gone from, I don't know, I think maybe the first year we picked 7th in the league, and then finally we were picked to win it by a lot of people coming in. And I said, when you don't fall off the mountain from the bottom of the mountain, as you climb up, people are going, everybody's working hard to knock you down. It's just really how you respond to it. And I really like this team we got coming back. And I think we've had a chance to address some of the shortcomings. We had certainly the depth at the quarterback position where we have some competition. And I like our football team. I like the way they worked, and I thought we've continued to recruit well, and we're excited about it. And, we think there's absolutely no reason why we're not right there competing for everything again this year.
Yeah,
and it won't be easy.
No, it's never easy. And, I'm not sure there was like a glaring deficiency from last year's team that resulted in the 3-4 record. You had blowout wins, you had close losses, you had some tough losses in there as well. But, there were kind of different things that happened in every single one of those games. As we look towards the fall of 21, I know you got Ham Sisson coming back as quarterback, a star tight end that's really developed in Ryan Miller, a really good stable of wide receivers and running backs, and you guys always seem to play pretty well on the defensive side of the ball. So as we get set to head into fall camp, and you'll forgive me that I'm probably going to ask you this the first day of fall practice as well, but what are the number one things that you're looking for in terms of looking at the roster on paper, what you saw them do in spring? Here's what we got to improve on in camp, so the train's already rolling once we get into the actual season.
Well, I don't care what team you're on. It's going to start at the quarterback position. We need to play better there. We need to put our guys in a better position, to have success there. And, we got to have answers for certain things that we saw a year ago. We certainly got to be better at throwing and catching. I'm really excited about the receiver group, have some guys that we didn't have a year ago. I think we got a really, really, I think the best group we've had up front, talent-wise, really on both sides of the ball. So I think it's looking at where we were challenged, and because I don't think it'll change a whole lot until we prove otherwise. I thought we were pretty solid defensively. I think when you look at that spring season, the thing that stood out to me is just about everybody in our league struggled offensively. There were 2 teams that played a little better offensively, and guess what? They were the 2 teams that had quarterbacks coming back that had played a good bit. And it was the VMI kid who's now, I guess, at Maryland, and then I think the Sanford kid ended up playing really well in a game. We won here, and a VMI. We lose 2 games early, largely because we missed 2 extra points, and we were really solid in the kicking game, but we weren't in a couple of those points. I felt like every game this spring season was a 1-possession basketball game. It just felt like every game. I know when you look through there, I don't know how many just close games there were the whole year with everybody. And, you just got to find a way to make those plays that we didn't make, a year ago. And it starts, again, work in preparation. I am excited. I do think we have I think we had built our football team to have a lot of depth, which, and you're playing in August, September, October, you're going to deal with heat and humidity, and you're going to deal with 11 game plus season. And it comes certainly into play. We played a 7-game season, didn't deal with any heat and humidity. And I really don't think we had a chance to take advantage of what we had built there. So I think the plan stays the same going forward. I like our depth. I think we have some depth and really on both sides of the ball. And I told our team yesterday, I said, guys, it's going to pay off for us, just the conditioning, how our guys have worked, and again, there's some talent there. We certainly just got to play better, got to coach better. But motivation hadn't been a problem.
Yeah. And, I think that does bode well for you a little bit when you have teams where there are spots up for grabs, even though you might have a depth chart coming into camp. A lot of those guys are going to feel like they got a shot to earn some real playing time. And when you're talking about a game of inches and some close losses from the spring season that's still fresh in their minds, that's an easy motivating factor where you don't need a ton of coach speak. They know it. And as you mentioned, a lot of smart guys on your team. We walked through your journey there a little bit. Have you had a moment in the last 4 years since you've been back where, I don't know, you're standing in the middle of a fall camp, maybe spacing out a little bit, looking up at, the championship sign, and you have a moment to reflect back on how much you've grown as a person from your playing days in the early 80s to leading that same team to a SoCon championship a couple decades later? Or have you just been so narrow-minded as football coaches tend to be that it's just next thing, we don't really have time to reflect or do that when you retire?
Well, I think the biggest thing I try to remember is how blessed I am to be here, just to have the opportunity. And, I think certainly our ties with the past, we have an incredible support group here. Our administration's been extremely supportive, particularly a school like ours. I think about, we have that Players Association that I really would, and I sincerely believe this, I'd put them up against any group and anywhere for how they've supported, financially, long history of tradition here and winning tradition and going back, 4 decades. It really got going about 4 decades ago. And, I think sometimes you feel like the burden's not the right, but you want to, the expectations are high, and nobody's got higher expectations than I do, and you're just trying to, uphold those, that tradition that was set here before you, and yet, for me, continuing to recruit and produce, great young men of character. For life beyond, they're going to live way beyond their football days at Furman. And I think that's kind of what drives me. And then having the ability to produce those type of young men, fathers and husbands and leaders and just off doing great things. And I mean, that's kind of what drives me, that. And then having a chance, again, compete for championships at a place where people say, you can't do it at a place like that. It's just, and yeah, it's challenging. I mean, everybody has challenges. Everybody has problems. And we certainly have our share of challenges. But I just enjoy coaching the type of young man we have here, that we recruited here. And, again, there's certainly challenges with all of it. But I still enjoy going to practice every day. I think sometimes I enjoy maybe the practice as much as I do the games. And I love the people I work with. And for me, really, I think what drives me more than anything is just who I get to work with every day, both as the staff and as the players. And, I guess I actually had a recruit in here today. I told his mother, I said, I guess I can't blame anybody else. I'm the head coach, so I get to make those decisions, if we want them on our staff. But for me, that's what's most important. It's just those relationships and trying to, continue to push the tradition and just being, first class in everything that we do. And that's going to be our focus going forward.
As we get set to wrap up here, it's been a long road for you personally, from your playing days to now, a couple decades as a coach, some of the top players, top places in college football. What do you, if there's the chance that there's a kid that's watching this that either wants to be a college football player like you were, or maybe be a college coach like you were, you've thrived pretty much with everything you've done in your professional life. I'm curious what you want the message to be from Clay Hendrix's story, as we know that it's far from being over. But so far, what's the thing that you would say to someone who's looking to get into either the game of football one way or the other? The key to success for Clay Hendrix.
Well, I would probably say surround yourself with great people. And I mean people, and I learned in even in this profession, I try to hire really bright guys who are really good workers. You try to provide a little leadership for them, and it's kind of interesting to watch them grow. I think that don't sacrifice on any of your principles. I got a text from a friend. We were 0-3 that first year you're talking about, and it basically said, stick to your principles, don't waver, and get a little better at something every day. And that's probably a good way to put it, and I don't care if it's a coaching profession or anything, just find something every day that you can get a little better at. And, and I think the thing we impress upon here with our kids is just, treating everybody with respect all the time. And I just think if you do those things, you're going to be at peace with whatever you do. And, there's certainly in our sport, just like any other, there's a lot of, you got to be lucky. The old ball's made a funny way for a reason. It bounces funny, but at the end of the day, can you look back and say, hey, I gave it everything I had, and I didn't cut any corners, and it's how we handle our players, and we're going to encourage them and kick them in the butt a little bit if we need to keep them going, just like we do our own kids. But we're going to love them too. And really just try to treat them like you treat your own kids. And, but I probably didn't answer your question, but just, for that young guy that's wanting to go coach, but just be willing to take a few chances. I get kids walking here that want to coach sometimes. And I said, hey, if you're willing, then I've had kids walking in and say, I'd like to coach if I can coach in this state or over here. I said, well, you do that now, your opportunities are going to be pretty limited, but be willing to step out of the box and be a little bit more of a risk taker. And, if you got to go take the job in Wyoming to get your foot in the door, and again, it's creating opportunities for yourself. And there's still a lot to be said in this profession for knowing people. I thought I always tried to, whether it was the coaches convention, I just tried to meet as many people as I could. And that's paid off a lot for me. And obviously I hadn't coached a lot of places, but I think it's helped me in the hiring process, and having the ability to reach out, to people. But just goes back to working hard and surrounding yourself with good people. And I think if you do that, good things usually happen for you.
Well, from my perspective, I've been covering you since you've been back. And, when Furman football is playing at a high level, and really Furman basketball for that matter, there is a good buzz that goes along in Greenville. And I think it's good for the program, but it's good for the entire upstate. And certainly the winning helps a lot with that. But, Furman football has been fun to watch for a few years now. So I do think there's the proof is in the pudding there. So look, Paladin Stadium, full capacity as we get set for 2021. Hopefully we're on the other side of the whole pandemic and you're not dealing with any of the same issues that you had to deal with over the course of 2020 into 2021 to start. Certainly look forward to an electric atmosphere in Greenville for your games this year. I want to thank you for taking some time with us. We're going to catch up with you in just a few weeks here as fall camp gets going. But Clay Hendrix, certainly appreciate the time today.
Well, thank you. I certainly appreciate you having me with you today. And, really excited that September 4th, we got a North Carolina A&T, a really good football team coming in here. I think it'd be a great, great environment. I don't know that we've ever played them. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to have a chance to return to some normalcy. And, I'm excited about this football team, and still got a lot of work to do between now and then, but we're excited about it.
That's Clay Hendrix, the head coach of the Furman Paladins, set for what they hope is another run at a Southern Conference championship. I want to thank you for joining us here for this week's episode of In Depth with Fox Carolina Sports. Have another great episode for you next week. Have a great one.